Most people think positivity is easy when life is good, but the real test isn't when things go right. It's when everything falls apart, and that's when most people fail. Yet in those very moments, when everything seems against us, lies the greatest opportunity for growth and success. In this message, I'll show you why attitude in adversity matters more than talent, opportunity, or even luck. You'll learn how to stay positive when everything seems lost, how to use hardship as fuel instead of defeat, and how to rebuild stronger than ever. By the end, you'll know how to turn life's worst blows into stepping stones for growth, and why hope, once chosen, is the most practical and powerful force in the world. We've all seen it. Two people face the same challenge. Maybe they lose their job, or their business collapses, or life suddenly changes in a way they never expected. One person grows bitter, discouraged, and defeated. The other, though facing the same loss, somehow finds strength, keeps moving, and in time builds a life even stronger than before. What makes the difference? It isn't circumstances, because those were the same. It isn't resources, because often the one who rose had even less to start with. The difference was inside. It was the choice to stay positive, to keep faith alive, to continue expecting good when everything around them looked bad. In the next 30 minutes, we're going to walk through how to build that kind of strength. First, we'll uncover what positivity really means and why most people misunderstand it. Then we'll see how adversity reveals character and why challenges are the very soil where success grows. We'll learn how to protect the mind from negativity when everything seems lost, and how to build the habit of expectancy that keeps you moving forward. Finally, we'll lift our eyes to purpose, because the surest way to stay positive is to live for something greater than yourself. Along the way, I'll share examples, analogies, and timeless truths that will show you exactly how to never lose hope, even when the world around you is crumbling. Here's something most people completely miss, and because they miss it, they set themselves up for disappointment. They confuse positivity with pretending problems don't exist. They think to stay positive means to plaster on a smile while ignoring the very real circumstances that surround them. They call denial positivity, but it isn't. Denial is weakness disguised. True positivity has nothing to do with ignoring reality. It has everything to do with how you choose to face it. The strongest men I've ever known were not those who never had problems. They were those who looked their problems square in the eye and decided, in spite of them, to stay steady in mind and spirit. Think about the farmer. He cannot choose the weather, he cannot command the rains to fall or the sun to shine, but what he can choose is what he plants. He can fill his fields with weeds, or he can fill them with wheat. He can choose to let the storms ruin him, or he can prepare, endure, and plant again. The weather is beyond his control, but the seed he plants is his choice. And it is the same with you and me. Life will bring storms, sometimes small, sometimes great, sometimes storms that shake us to the core. But positivity is not pretending the storm isn't there. It is choosing what seed you plant while it rages. Now let us see the stakes. If you mistake positivity for denial, you will weaken yourself without realizing it. You will close your eyes to danger and call it faith, when it is only blindness. You will refuse to acknowledge reality, and because you refuse, you cannot change it. And when the storm passes, as it always does, you will find you have wasted your chance to grow stronger. But if you understand true positivity, if you face reality and still choose to meet it with courage, with gratitude, with expectancy, then every storm becomes an opportunity. You may be beaten down for a time, but you will rise with deeper roots, stronger character, and greater faith. So let me ask you plainly, what do you call positivity in your life? Is it denial, or is it choice? Are you ignoring the storm and hoping it goes away? Or are you choosing to plant good seed in the midst of it? Because this makes all the difference. One weakens you, the other strengthens you. One blinds you, the other prepares you. And one leads to despair, while the other leads to growth. And this brings us to the next truth why your thought life matters so much. Because what you choose to dwell on during those storms does not merely affect your feelings, it shapes your future. That is what we will uncover next. What I am about to share may seem almost too simple to be true, but once you see it, you will recognize it everywhere in your life. What you dwell on expands. the thoughts you hold in your mind, the pictures you entertain, the attitudes you nourish, these do not stay hidden. They move outward. They shape your behavior, they color your choices, and before long, they build the very circumstances you face. Most people go through life imagining that their thoughts are private, disconnected, harmless, like smoke rising into the air. But thoughts are not smoke, they are seeds. And like seeds, they carry within them the power to grow into something visible, tangible, inescapable. A seed of fear grows into hesitation, hesitation into inaction, and inaction into failure. A seed of hope grows into courage, courage into action, and action into success. The soil of life does not discriminate, it simply returns what is planted. Think for a moment about what happens when fear dominates a man's mind. He pictures loss, he sees defeat, he imagines rejection. Those images, repeated day after day, shape his posture, his tone, his words, his decisions. He hesitates when he should act. He doubts when he should believe. And because he projects doubt and fear, the world responds with rejection and failure. He says to himself, "I knew it would happen," but what he does not see is that he himself planted the seed that produced the harvest. Now think of another man, facing the same circumstances but holding a different picture in his mind. He sees success. He imagines opportunity. He believes in possibility. That image shapes his posture, his tone, his decisions. He acts with courage. He persists when others quit. He projects confidence, and the world responds with acceptance, opportunity, and success. He says to himself, "I knew it would happen," and he too is right, because he planted the seed and life returned the harvest. This is why I have always said, and will continue to say, that we become what we think about. Not sometimes, not occasionally, always. The law does not change, the soil does not lie. If you dwell on fear, you will reap fear. If you dwell on faith, you will reap faith. If you fill your mind with images of defeat, defeat will find you. If you fill your mind with images of victory, victory will find you. Life is always a reflection of your dominant thoughts. Now let us see the stakes clearly. If you allow your mind to drift into negativity, if you permit yourself to dwell endlessly on what you fear, you are not simply wasting time. You are actively shaping a future you do not want. Every fearful picture, every doubt, every complaint is a seed planted in the soil of your life, and sooner or later it will bear fruit. But the same law that punishes the careless will reward the deliberate. If you choose your thoughts carefully, if you dwell on what you desire, if you hold steady to faith, gratitude, and expectancy, then you are planting seeds of strength, and those seeds will grow into results that others call success. So let me ask you, what pictures are you planting in your mind each day? Are they pictures of despair or pictures of hope? Are they images of failure or images of possibility? Because the soil does not care what you plant. It will return whatever you give it. And if you do not choose deliberately, the weeds of fear will grow on their own. And this brings us naturally to the next truth. For it is in adversity, when everything seems to be falling apart, that the importance of thought becomes clearest. Ease hides weakness, hardship reveals strength. And it is in those very moments that attitude is tested, and character is forged. That is where we must turn next. Here's something that may surprise you. Ease has never made a man strong. Comfort never built character. It is only when life breaks down, when the props are knocked out, when the things we counted on suddenly fail us, that our true selves are revealed. Most people spend their days imagining that they are strong, that they are prepared, that their attitude is steady. But the real test comes not in times of ease, but in times of crisis. Anyone can smile when the sun is shining. Anyone can feel confident when everything is working according to plan. The question is, what happens when the storm arrives, when the foundation shakes, when everything you thought you could count on is suddenly gone? That is when character is tested, and that is when most men fail. I have often spoken of the study that followed 100 young men, all full of hope and promise at the age of 25. They were healthy, eager, ambitious, ready to make something of themselves, but by the age of 65, 95 of them had failed. They had failed financially, They had failed personally. They had failed to build the lives they once dreamed of. And why? It was not because they lacked opportunity. They all had it. It was not because they lacked talent. Many of them were gifted. It was because when life tested them, when hardship struck, when things began to fall apart, they surrendered. They gave in to despair. They let fear and doubt control them. And so, year by year, they drifted into failure, not because they lacked the ability to succeed, but because they lacked the attitude to endure. Now, let us see the contrast. When life breaks down, when circumstances collapse, there are always a few, only a few, who rise above it. They do not surrender when the storm hits. They do not throw up their hands when they lose a job, or a business, or a relationship. They steady themselves. They refuse to give in to despair. They decide, in the midst of loss, to keep moving forward. And in time, those very losses become the soil out of which their greatest successes grow. For strength does not come in spite of hardship, it comes through hardship. So let us be plain. If you surrender when things fall apart, you will join the 95. You will drift, complain, give up, and life will confirm your attitude with failure. But if you resolve, even in the darkest hour, to stay positive, to guard your thought, to continue expecting good, then you will be among the 5. For ease never tests you, but hardship always does. And hardship is the dividing line between those who quit and those who build. So let me ask you, what do you do when life breaks down? Do you surrender, or do you steady yourself? Do you let the storm decide your destiny, or do you decide it yourself? Because your answer to that question will shape your future more than any circumstance you face. And this brings us to the next truth. For if adversity exposes weakness, it also offers a gift. It gives us the chance to grow, to become stronger, to build character that no ease could ever provide. And it is to that growth that we must now turn. Now here is a truth that at first may seem harsh, but once you accept it, you will see its beauty. Nothing of lasting value is ever built without struggle. Muscles do not grow in comfort. They grow under strain, under resistance, under the very pressure that seems to be against them. And so it is with character. It is the struggle itself that makes us strong. We would all prefer a life of ease, a life without setbacks or disappointments, a life where everything moves in a straight line toward success. But such a life, if it were possible, would leave us weak, untested, and shallow. It is the struggle that deepens us, the hardship that strengthens us, the failures that refine us into people capable of lasting achievement. Every trial carries within it a hidden benefit, though most never discover it. They see only the pain, the loss, the frustration, and they stop there. But if they would only persist, if they would look deeper, they would find that the very obstacle which seemed to block the way was in fact the instrument that shaped their strength. History is full of men and women whose greatest achievements were born not in ease but in adversity. The discoveries that changed the world, the inventions that lifted humanity, the leadership that turned nations, these were not born in times of comfort. They were born in crisis, when struggle forced the human spirit to rise higher than it ever would have in peace. Think of Abraham Lincoln. He failed again and again, in business, in politics, in personal life. He suffered defeats that would have broken most men. Yet each failure taught him persistence, humility, and resilience. By the time he rose to the presidency, he was no stranger to hardship. And because of that, when the nation itself seemed to be falling apart, when the storm of civil war threatened to destroy everything, he had the strength of character to endure, to lead, to persist. Without the earlier failures, he would not have been prepared for that test. His greatness was forged in the fire of struggle. Now let us bring this closer. When you face hardship, you have two choices. You can see it as an enemy, resist it, curse it, and let it defeat you. Or you can see it as a teacher, as an opportunity, as a chance to grow stronger than you were before. The struggle is not there to destroy you, it is there to build you. And if you will embrace it, if you will persist through it, you will discover strengths, abilities, and insights you never knew you had. So let me ask you, what is the struggle you are facing now? Do you see it only as loss, or do you see the hidden benefit within it? Do you curse it, or do you embrace it? Because the answer to that question determines whether you grow weaker or stronger. And this leads us to the next great truth. For if adversity tests us and struggle builds us, then the greatest danger is not the hardship itself, but what happens in our minds while we face it. To stay positive when everything falls apart, you must guard your thoughts, because it is in the mind that defeat begins, and that is where we must now turn. Here is something most people never truly realize until it is too late. The most valuable possession you will ever have is not your money, not your house, not even your health. It is your mind. Because everything else flows from it. Your health is strengthened or weakened by your thoughts. Your wealth is gained or lost through the decisions that spring from your mind. Your relationships, your reputation, your entire destiny is shaped in that unseen workshop where thoughts are formed and choices are made. And yet most people guard their money more carefully than their mind. They will protect their wallets, lock their doors, hide away their valuables, but they let any thought, any influence, any fear or doubt wander unchecked into their mind, and they wonder why their lives are filled with anxiety, failure, and regret. When dark times come, and they always come, the danger is not merely in the circumstances themselves, but in how those circumstances shape your thoughts. A crisis multiplies negativity. Doubt spreads like wildfire when everything seems uncertain. Fear grows quickly when the future looks dark, and unless you are deliberate, unless you act, like a watchman at the gate of your mind, you will let those fears and doubts march right in and take control. And once they do, they shape your emotions, they guide your actions, and before long, the very thing you feared becomes reality. You have seen this. A man loses his job, and instead of guarding his thoughts, he allows fear to dominate. He begins to believe he will never recover, that no one will hire him, that his future is gone. That picture in his mind saps his confidence, weakens his spirit, and causes him to miss opportunities that might have saved him. In time, his fearful thought becomes a fearful reality. But another man, facing the same loss, makes a different choice. He feels the fear, but he refuses to let it take root. He guards his thought carefully. He pictures himself working again, rebuilding, finding new opportunities. He replaces every image of despair with an image of hope. And because of that, his attitude remains steady, his actions remain bold, and sooner or later, opportunity comes because his thoughts prepared him to see it and seize it. The difference was not in the circumstance. It was in the way each man guarded his mind. The mind is like a garden. Left unattended, weeds grow quickly. You do not have to plant them, they appear on their own. Negativity is like that, it will grow automatically if you do nothing. But flowers, crops, fruit, these must be planted, cultivated, protected. And the man who tends his mental garden with care, especially in dark times, will reap a harvest of strength, hope, and success. The man who neglects it will reap only weeds of despair. So let me ask you, are you guarding your thoughts with the seriousness they deserve? You watch carefully what images you allow to enter your mind, what voices you allow to influence you, what pictures you dwell upon each day, because your future depends on it. In times of adversity, the battle is first in the mind. Win there, and you will win in life. Lose there, and no amount of effort outside will save you. And this leads us naturally to the next truth. For guarding thought is not only about keeping out fear and doubt, it is also about choosing deliberately what to put in its place. And when you fill your mind with expectancy, the firm belief that good is coming, even in the darkest hour, you set in motion a force that reshapes your life. That is where we must now turn. Here is a law as certain as gravity, though most men never recognize it. Life reflects back to us the spirit we project into it. What you expect is what you invite. What you look for is what you find. If you rise in the morning expecting trouble, you will see it at every turn. If you rise expecting opportunity, you will begin to notice doors that others pass by. Expectancy is not wishful thinking. It is not vague hope. It is a deep conviction, a steady belief that the world will return to you in kind what you send out to it. And because that conviction shapes your attitude shapes your actions, and your actions shape your results, expectancy becomes reality. Think of the man who approaches life with fear. He expects rejection, he expects failure, he expects disappointment. And so his voice is hesitant, his manner unsure, his posture timid. Those he meets sense his uncertainty, and they withdraw. Opportunities appear, but he does not recognize them, because his mind is blinded by fear. And when he fails, as he inevitably does, he says, "I knew it would happen." And he was right, not because fate was against him, but because his expectation guided his actions, and his actions shaped his results. Now think of another man who approaches life with faith. He expects acceptance, he expects success, he expects progress. And so his voice is confident, his manner open, his posture strong. Those he meets sense his conviction, and they respond warmly. Opportunities appear, and he sees them, because his mind is alert with expectancy. And when he succeeds, he too says, "I knew it would happen." And he also is right, because life faithfully reflected his spirit. This is why attitude is always cause, never effect. The world does not shape your spirit. Your spirit shapes the way you experience the world. Life is a mirror. It does not smile first. It smiles when you smile. It does not return warmth until you project it. It does not offer opportunity until you expect it. And the tragedy is that most people are waiting for the mirror to change before they do. They say, "When life gives me good, then I'll be positive. When opportunity comes, then I'll expect it. When people treat me kindly, then I'll act with kindness." But the mirror has no choice but to reflect what is put before it. Change your attitude first, and the reflection will change in time. I once told the story of a woman who moved to Florida with her husband. She felt alone, isolated, rejected. She said the neighbors were cold and unfriendly. She believed they wanted nothing to do with her, and so she withdrew, kept to herself, spoke little. The neighbors, sensing her distance, responded with distance of their own. And she concluded, "I knew they didn't want me here." But what she did not see was that she herself projected the very attitude that was returned to her. Had she gone out with warmth, had she smiled, had she reached out with expectancy of friendship, she would have been welcomed. Life gave her back exactly what she sent into it. So let me ask you, what are you expecting each day? Do you rise with expectancy of good or expectancy of defeat? Do you project gratitude and confidence or suspicion and doubt? Because life is not deciding for you. You are deciding through the attitude you project, and life will always reflect it faithfully. And this leads us naturally into the next truth. For expectancy is not a single decision. It is a habit. It must be renewed daily, just as hope must be fed like a fire. And if, when you wish to remain positive when everything falls apart, you must learn to build the habit of hope day by day, moment by moment, that is where we will turn next. Here is something most people never understand about hope. It does not last on its own. It must be renewed daily, just like fire must be fed. A fire left untended does not blaze brighter with time. It dies down, it weakens, it smolders into nothing but ashes. And the same is true of hope. You cannot live today on yesterday's conviction. You cannot carry tomorrow on today's faith unless you renew it. Every new day brings with it new tests, new challenges, new discouragements. And unless you deliberately choose to rekindle the flame of hope, you will find it slipping away, and with it, the strength to persist. This is why so many people begin with enthusiasm but soon fade into discouragement. At the start of a new goal, a new year, a new project, they feel hope rising. They see possibilities clearly. They expect progress eagerly. But after a week, a month, a season, the inevitable difficulties arrive. The problems they did not anticipate appear. The results they expected are slower than they hoped. And because they never learned the discipline of daily renewal, their hope weakens, their attitude sours, and they begin to give up. They thought hope was permanent, when in truth it must be maintained like a lamp that only burns as long as oil is supplied. Now let us make this practical. How does a man renew hope daily? First, by gratitude. Nothing strengthens hope more than taking time each day to recognize the good that already exists. Gratitude shifts the focus from what is lacking to what is present, from despair to abundance. Second, By expectancy. Each morning, deliberately decide to expect something good, not vague wishing but steady conviction. Today I will look for opportunity. Today I will expect progress. Today I will act with confidence. Third, by guarding input. The voices you listen to, the images you allow, the influences you entertain, these all either feed hope or extinguish it. Choose carefully. Feed your mind with truth, with faith, with examples of strength, and hope will be renewed. Neglect it, and despair will creep in quietly, like a draft through a door left open. Think of the man who begins each day feeding on complaint. He reads of failure, he listens to discouragement, he dwells on what he lacks. By midday, his hope is gone, his attitude sour, his actions half-hearted, and life reflects that back to him in disappointment. Another man begins his day with gratitude, expectancy, and guarded thought. He feeds his hope deliberately, like a fire tender adding wood. By midday, his spirit is steady, his attitude confident, his actions bold, and life reflects that back to him in opportunity. The difference was not in the day itself, but in how each man renewed hope at the start of it. So let me ask you, how do you begin each day? Do you assume hope will carry itself, or do you take time to renew it? Do you let the fire smolder, or do you deliberately add fuel? Because your answer will decide not only how you face the day, but how the day responds to you. And this leads us to the next truth. For even renewed hope is not enough unless it endures. It must persist beyond feelings, beyond setbacks, beyond discouragement. And that is where the true strength of the human spirit is proven in persistence. That is where we must now turn. Now let us look at the one quality that separates the man who overcomes despair from the one who is overcome by it. That quality is persistence. For hope, no matter how bright, will flicker in the winds of adversity unless it is anchored in persistence. Feelings change like the weather, bright and calm one day, stormy and unsettled the next. If a man relies on feelings to carry him through, he will never finish what he starts. He will never endure when hardship presses in. But the man who persists, who makes up his mind to continue regardless of feelings, finds within himself a strength that grows with each step. Persistence is the steady march of the spirit, one foot after the other, long after excitement has faded and long after the easy paths are gone. Think of how most men approach difficulty. They begin with enthusiasm, full of energy and optimism. But soon enough, reality intrudes. The work is harder than they expected, the results are slower, the obstacles greater. And when the glow of excitement fades, they begin to doubt. They say to themselves, perhaps it wasn't meant to be, perhaps I should turn back. And so they quit, often just before the breakthrough would have come. They surrender because they mistake fading feelings for final truth. But the few who persist, who continue even when they feel nothing but weariness, even when they see no immediate results, even when everything in them cries out to stop, those are the ones who cross the line. They discover that persistence is not just an act of will, it is the forging of character. Each step strengthens resolve. Each day endured deepens faith. Each act of persistence builds a foundation that no storm can shake. I am reminded of Russell Conwell's story of Acres of Diamonds. A farmer, restless and impatient, sold his land to search for wealth elsewhere. He wandered far and wide seeking treasure and died penniless. Meanwhile, the man who purchased his land discovered one of the richest diamond mines in the world, hidden beneath the very ground the first man had abandoned. The difference was not in the land itself, it was in persistence. One man quit too soon, convinced there was nothing there. The other persisted, continued working the same soil, and uncovered riches. So it is with life. The riches you seek are often closer than you realize, hidden just beyond the point where most men give up. Now, let us bring this home. In the darkest seasons of life, persistence becomes more than a choice, it becomes survival. When hope is tested, when discouragement whispers, when everything seems lost, persistence is the decision to keep moving anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is moving forward in spite of it. And persistence is not the absence of despair. It is continuing in spite of it. Each time you persist, you prove to yourself that despair cannot hold you. Each step forward weakens its grip, each act of endurance strengthens your spirit. And in time, persistence transforms failure itself into the foundation of success. So let me ask you, when hardship presses in, do you stop at the first sign of resistance, or do you continue? Do you let feelings decide your future, or do you let persistence decide it? Because feelings will betray you, but persistence will never fail you. The man who persists, who continues when others quit, who endures long after the enthusiasm has faded, that man cannot be stopped. And this brings us to the final and highest truth. For persistence, hope, expectancy, and the guarding of thought all build strength, but they find their deepest meaning only when joined to purpose a mission greater than yourself, an anchor that holds you steady no matter how fierce the storm. That is where we must now turn. Here is the highest truth of all, the anchor that holds a man steady when everything else is falling apart. Purpose. Without purpose, hope weakens. Without purpose, persistence fades. Without purpose, even strength itself runs dry. A man who lives only for himself will always be at the mercy of circumstance, because when trouble comes, and it always comes, his self-centered goals lose their meaning. He may endure for a while, he may hold out through some small difficulties, but when the great storms arrive, he has nothing larger than himself to hold on to, and he is swept away. But the man who lives for something greater, for contribution, for service, for the value he brings to others, that man is anchored. The storm may rage, the winds may howl, the waves may batter against him, but his purpose holds him steady. He is not living for comfort, he is not living for recognition, he is not living merely to get through another day. He is living for a mission entrusted to him, and that mission gives him strength beyond himself. Think of a river. If it hoarded its waters trying to keep everything for itself, it would soon grow shallow, stagnant, lifeless. But because it pours itself out, because it gives to the land around it, it grows stronger, deeper, more powerful. So it is with you and me. If we hoard our talents, our gifts, our energy, trying only to serve ourselves, our lives grow small and restless. But if we pour ourselves out, if we give freely, if we live as though entrusted with something larger than our own comfort, then we discover strength we never knew we had. Purpose enlarges us, lifts us, steadies us, and it drives fear and despair from our hearts because we no longer have time to dwell on them. I have seen this in business, in families, in communities. The man who works only for his own gain is easily discouraged, easily defeated. A setback comes, and he loses heart because his goal was too small to sustain him. But the man who works to serve others, to build something that benefits more than himself, is not so easily shaken. His purpose keeps him moving when lesser men quit. His mission gives him resilience because he knows he is part of something larger. His results speak for him, not because he boasts, but because the lives he touches give testimony. Think of how my own company grew. It was not built merely on the desire for profit. It grew because we sought to help others grow. We poured ourselves into inspiring men and women, into giving them tools and ideas that would shape their futures, and because we served, we prospered. That is, the law of life service multiplies rewards. Contribution enlarges success, purpose turns even hardship into strength. Now let us be clear. Living for something greater does not mean you will avoid adversity. In fact, you may face more of it. But it does mean that when adversity comes, you will not be broken by it. You will endure, because your eyes are fixed on something higher. You are not asking, "What will happen to me?" You are asking, "What must I give? What is my mission? How can I serve?" And the man who asks those questions has no room left for despair. His life is too large for it. So let me ask you, what is your purpose? What is the mission that will hold you steady when everything else falls apart? If you do not know, find it. If you have drifted, return to it. If you have lived only for yourself, lift your eyes higher. Because purpose is the anchor of positivity. Without it, you will drift with the winds. With it, you will stand firm, unshaken, no matter how fierce the storm. And this brings us to the final movement of this message, where we gather all these truths together and leave with a clear affirmation and a challenge to never lose hope, to never give in to despair, and to live each day as though entrusted with a mission. And so we have walked together through the truth that shapes every life, the truth that determines whether a man rises when everything falls apart or whether he is broken by it. We have seen that positivity is not denial, not blind wishing, not pretending that storms do not rage. It is the strength to face reality squarely and still choose faith over fear, hope over despair, expectancy over doubt. We have seen that adversity is the test of attitude, that hardship exposes character, that struggle, though painful, is the very forge in which strength is built. We have seen that the mind is the battlefield, that thoughts must be guarded like treasure, that the images we dwell upon expand into reality. We have seen that life is a mirror, faithfully reflecting what we project, and that expectancy, whether of defeat or of victory, is always fulfilled. We have seen that hope must be renewed daily, fed like a fire, and that persistence carries us beyond feelings, beyond discouragement, beyond the weakness that ruins most men. And finally, we have lifted our eyes to purpose, to the anchor that holds steady when the storms of life threaten to sweep us away. For the man who lives only for himself is always at the mercy of despair, but the man who lives for something greater cannot be shaken, because his life is too large for fear, too deep for bitterness, too strong for defeat. So let me say it plainly. Do not mistake positivity for denial. Do not surrender when life breaks down. Do not allow weeds of despair to overrun the garden of your mind. Guard your thoughts. Renew your hope daily. Persist when feelings fade. And above all, live for a purpose greater than yourself, because purpose is the surest anchor in adversity. If you will do these things, you will not only survive the storm, you will grow stronger because of it. You will not only endure hardship, you will rise through it. And your life, far from being wasted in fear, will shine as proof of the strength that comes from faith, expectancy, persistence, and service. Make this your affirmation. I will stay positive even when everything falls apart. I will guard my mind. I will expect good. I will renew hope each day. I will persist when others quit. And I will live for a purpose greater than myself. Say it until it becomes part of you, until your spirit knows it as truth, until your life reflects it in every action. And before we part, let me leave you with this invitation. If you want to understand the one principle that explains why some men rise while others collapse, why some lives end in bitterness while others end in victory, then listen to my message called The Strangest Secret. In it, I reveal the foundation of everything we have spoken about here, the truth that we become what we think about. Click here and let us continue the journey together.